I say this with great regret because I probably spilled more ink in the Washington Post than any human being defending Donald Trump during his presidency. I'm not a never-Trumper, but the election denial put people over the edge. And at some point, the voters said, we don't want the chaos. We want conservative. In 2020, voters didn't reject Trumpism. They rejected Trump.
Yep. Mark Thiessen, longtime writer for the Washington Post, probably the sole journalist at the Washington Post who backed Trump during the day on Fox. Fox's take last night. He wasn't the only one on Fox, by the way, saying, listen, man, we got to step away from Trump. We really, really do. It's election denial. And I agree with what he said, and I'll tell you why. Because it's what I've been thinking for a long time anyway. I've said it here on the show. To much consternation, I always get I get leery sometimes when I feel like I want to speak the truth or what I believe to be the truth when maybe not everybody here in this room will agree with me. Are you listening in your car here to Wake Up Mid-Missouri? And even if you believe that there was a election fraud to the point that it could have overturned the 2020 election, it's just something it's not worth talking about. And we'll go back to all of those. Hey, here in our room, in our chamber, yep, we're on board with this, we're on board with that. But it's independent voters, it's the in-betweeners, it's the folks that are undecided. And somebody said here on the show yesterday, can't we take, and that's why I'm loving Ron DeSantis 2024, can't we can take Trump's policies and put those in the White House, and we don't need Trump to do it. Fox's Mark Thiessen, not the only one going after Trump. On Fox yesterday, Kayleigh McEnany, former Trump press secretary, saying, dude, please don't make any kind of announcement here in the next couple of weeks.
I know there's a temptation to start talking about 2024. No. 2022 is not over.
Great point.
Every Republican energy needs to go to grinding the Biden agenda to a halt. And that could go straight through the state of Georgia on December 6th.
Does that include Trump?
I think he needs to put it on pause. Absolutely. Look, he'll make that decision. He'll make his own decision. But
does he go to
if
Georgia?
I'm advising any contender, DeSantis, Trump, whomever, no one announces 2024 until we get through December 6th.
And the reference there to December of 2022, it's coming up December 6th. It's the big runoff in Georgia. Here's where we are. Bottom line this morning, nationwide, watching for control of the Senate. It looks like, although not official, looks like Republicans should control the House. I don't think quite official yet, but the Senate, 3 big races we're still keeping an eye on.
We're still holding out hope. And Georgia, it appears that about 99% of the vote is in. Nobody got 50%, so I think everyone is agreeing that we are going to a runoff. Now, when we were talking about Greitens and some of the other races and ranked choice voting, I said, I don't know that I love ranked choice voting, but I kind of like the idea of a runoff. Because if somebody, I don't like the idea of someone getting elected with 35% of the vote, right? But here, both candidates, 49.2 and 48.7, and a runoff at this point just seems like a huge waste of money. Now, granted, Warnock is in the lead, so maybe here I really do want the runoff. But, I'm wondering if Missouri, so I'm in thinking about Missouri, because we have been talking about how we potentially change our elections. I think I would be in support of a runoff if you didn't get like 45 or 40, because the independent candidate essentially is a spoiler here and only got 2.1. I think people, I feel like it's a waste of money, and the rest of us are just basically going to be sitting around watching and waiting for Georgia to do their thing.
And we're still waiting. By the way, ranked choice voting, I don't know if anybody has followed because this has kind of gone under the radar. Sarah Palin is losing her rear end big time in Alaska, unless that ranked choice voting comes through for her. But she's losing, I think last check, like 47-27. She's losing big time. A whole nother discussion about the candidates that have been picked for some of these races. I don't believe that it was all ranked choice voting that's not supporting Sarah Palin. I think there's a solid argument to be made. Your time is gone. We really need to move to just a different vibe of a Republican, and Sarah is not it.
Well, and also running under the radar, and we've only got about, in Nevada, one site saying about 80% of the vote in, but they actually have a ballot measure in Nevada to implement ranked choice voting, and I think currently it's winning. So although they don't have ranked choice now, they could be voting to get it in the next cycle, and there it's still, Laxalt is up, so I think people are hopeful. up by, a fair amount. He's at 49.4 versus 47.6. The Arizona's really close, and they've still, it looks like they've got 76% of the vote. You have to wonder, Florida can count millions and millions of votes in 3 hours, and we're going to be on like day 3. And in fact, I saw some tweets yesterday that were like, it might be into next week.
Do you know, too, we have to give kudos to our election judges here in Missouri and our poll workers and our Secretary of State, Jay Ashcroft. We don't have these issues here in Missouri. They had the results done at basically 11 o'clock, which is huge. Stephanie, to your point, too, about what's happening in Nevada, Laxalt's numbers look really good, and we'll see what happens in Georgia. But something that has not been reported very much about the New York governor's race that I think is worth pointing out. The media says, well, the current governor won. Yes, she did. She carried 13 counties out of 62. He won almost all the counties in that state. They flipped 4 congressional districts to the Republican side. There hasn't been a Republican that has run that strong. They brought Bill Clinton in, Obama, you name it, not since Nelson Rockefeller. That was an amazing campaign. In the end, the bottom line is New York City had too many Democrat voters for him to win statewide. But that was they flipped 4 seats. That's huge.
It is. And on the vote counting, I saw this tweet last night, and it literally made me laugh out loud. This guy on Twitter named Eric said, "You have a device in your pocket that can communicate with satellites so that you can order tacos in your undies, but we can't count ballots." And I thought, that's a fair point. I don't understand. We should get Secretary of State Jay Ashcroft down to Arizona to give them a lesson.
I thought this was funny. MSNBC yesterday.
Fetterman as a nominee at some point for president.
What?
Fetterman as a nominee at some point for president.
Whoa! Hold up, Democrats.
Yeah, and the video of that, I don't know if you've seen the video of that particular clip, but Andrea Mitchell's arms were crossed as she was listening. It was, and I don't know if they're talking about in a future cycle, 2024. I heard the clip, but there was really no explanation if they're talking about down the line. When are they referring to on that?
Or just the idea that they're referring to it at all.
Yeah, they definitely are.
It's not that far-fetched considering who's there now.
And welcome into the show. Wake Up Mid-Missouri. That's producer Hannah. How are you today?
Good morning.
There's Mr. Brian Houseworth.
It's good to see you, sir. Good
John
morning.
Marsh is here. There's Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
My name is Branden Rathert. So this morning, bottom line, basically, right now, it's 49-48 in the Senate Republicans. So there's still 3 seats out there. The one is going to be Georgia. Runoff is December the 6th. And again, these races, why we're paying so much attention to Arizona, Georgia, and Nevada, because it's for control of the Senate, and that is important to us. Nevada Senate race, Arizona Senate race, and Georgia Senate race.
Correct.
All right. Gubernatorial race in Arizona. That's the race with Kari Lake.
It's looking better than the Senate race even. I think most people are hopeful and think that she is going to pull it out.
Welcome into the show. So what turned folks out locally? Nice story in the Jefferson City News Tribune. They spoke with some voters leaving the polls the other day. Joe Gamm from the Jefferson City News Tribune speaking with folks, and several in his article. It was, "I want them to legalize marijuana." Amendment 3, quoting Amanda Bullmaster. Amendment 3 definitely was the big one that I wanted to make my voice heard on. That and Trudy Bush Valentine. Other folks, it's the tradition of voting. I want to make my voice heard. They quote somebody by the name of Jim Rathert, no relation. It's important for me to vote because that's what I've always done, maintaining personal tradition of voting. A lot of folks in other countries don't even have that opportunity. It's a good point. We always take for granted, man, we get to do this. A lot of places,
That's right.
It's like when you're a kid and your mom and dad tell you you're going to eat peas for dinner and you have no choice. That's what it's like in other countries.
Well, and it was 49.4% in Boone County, and Jay Ashcroft's calculation, I think it was going to end up in the lower 50s. But, something we touched on, Brandon, the other 50%, where were they? I mean, yeah. I just can't imagine anything more, regardless of what political side you're on, that they wouldn't take the time to do it. It didn't take that long.
Here's what, and by the way, Jay Ashcroft hanging out with our news partners, ABC 17 yesterday, talking about low voter turnout in the state.
People are saying, you know what, it's already decided. I've already done what I could in the primary. It's locked in because I'm in a blue district or I'm in a red state. And I think that probably has contributed to people not participating.
I wish there was a way, like we could go. So 50, what was it in Cole County? Was it right at 50, Marsh? Right around 50. Boone County,
49.4.
49%. So basically, half of the voters just in Cole, and I don't know what the Callaway County numbers are. I haven't seen Montauk, Randolph, Howard counties. Haven't seen any of those, but 50% of the folks not turning out to vote. I would love to go to those folks who didn't turn out to vote and just ask them, hey, why didn't you vote yesterday? Were you busy? Did you have an upset tummy? Did you think, oh, we got this. It's Missouri. It's a red state. Why did you not get out and vote? I wonder, and I have no idea what kind of answers we would get because I've tried to think, I've always voted. I've never had an excuse sufficient enough for me to not go and vote.
And you had 2 weeks of no excuse absentee voting, and I used that. I took advantage of that, and it was very helpful, and I appreciate that. The clip that you played there from Channel 17, and I'm not critical of Mr. Ashcroft. He's simply quoting what voters have told him. Whoever told him that is wrong. Is absolutely wrong. It doesn't, I mean, I just mentioned New York flipped 4 very Democratic congressional districts. And in Missouri, Stephanie touched on this. The Republicans unseated Mark Ellebrocht in one of the most blue areas in the state. And that's huge. And the Republicans ousted Craig Fischel in Ruby Red Springfield. So whoever's telling Ashcroft that, these voters, they're absolutely wrong.
What happened in Springfield, probably in the state, that's the thing that really is like, wow. Because I don't know if you've ever spent any time in Greene County, Missouri. Yeah. Man, it's Marjorie Taylor red in Springfield, Missouri.
And now they have 3 Democratic state representatives in Springfield. That is, and they're all female, yeah. They're all young. That's a big deal for the Missouri Democratic Party, and it's never happened before. They usually have had 1. They have 1 blue district. Now they have 3.
I wonder if, what in your mind, what is it that people don't get out and vote? Is it like something came up that day, family emergency? I was going to do it later in the day, but the kid got a tummy ache, had to take him to the children's hospital or something like that. Or
I think lots of people think that one single vote doesn't matter.
Roy Lovelady, Carl Scala. So it could be that. What do you think it is? 874-9390. And John, to your point about people they just don't or they don't care. But I'm like, you cared enough to go and register, which to me is more time consuming and more difficult than actually voting. You know, so you've registered. Why did you not go to the poll and vote? Not to chastise anybody. I'm curious and would love to hear any ideas that you have. 874-9390. 874-9390. 7:35 this morning. Scott Faughn, Missouri Times, and This Week in Missouri Politics, hosts that TV show. He's joining us. Who might be the next attorney general in Missouri? Maybe he's got some ideas on folks when they don't go out and vote. How come? Meanwhile, 5 minutes from now, Daily DC Rundown with Stephanie Bell. What's underneath the circus tent?
I'd love to pull audio from the first week when Russia invaded Ukraine because we all thought it was going to go down really quickly, and here we
We have seen nothing to indicate that the Russians are, at the present moment, willing to engage in good faith negotiations.
Well, that's because State Department spokesperson Ned Price hasn't heard Stephanie Bell's report here in the Daily DC Rundown. Russia this morning might be a little bit more inclined to want to go, hey, maybe we should do this differently. That's getting us into today's Daily DC Rundown with Stephanie Bell.
Well, Ukraine says it's open to peace talks. Russia has announced a retreat from a southern Ukraine capital that was seized very early in the war. Apparently, they're reporting as many as 40,000 Ukrainian civilians and over 100,000 Russian soldiers have been killed. Zelensky is saying he's open to peace talks, especially based on this retreat. But Zelensky still, has to be concerned because Putin doesn't play checkers. He plays chess. And that's what Zelensky's saying. He's saying, hey, maybe this whole retreat is actually to lure us into a different location so that way Russia can take a strategic advantage. And so Zelensky's like, I'll believe it when I see it, and I'm willing to talk to you, but I'm not fully buying this whole retreat thing yet. So we'll see.
He says, I'm not going to be duped, and I still do applaud. I was speaking with a couple of Ukrainians Sunday. One of them, his name is Vlad, and he's been featured in a series of stories in the Columbia Daily Tribune and the Columbia Missourian, but talking about what's going on there and the resolve of the people. Think whatever you want about the Ukraine government of the past, but the people, just regular folks, just like us, that live there and what they've been dealing with and their resolve. I mean, because we thought it was going to be short for two reasons. Either Russia would go in and do something and we made our point, we'll back out, or that they were just going to clobber. Remember, they were going to clobber Ukraine.
There were lots of people saying it would be 6 weeks and over.
And here we are, 9 months later.
Right? But Biden is less worried, I guess, about the people of Ukraine and more worried about Hannah's favorite person, Brittany Griner.
Oh, God.
And apparently yesterday was saying, well, now that the midterm elections are over, maybe we can get Brittany Griner back. Well,
that's priority number 2 on the
Why does
list.
Putin care about our midterm? I don't understand why that would make it any more likely. Of course, she lost her appeal in a Russian court. She's been moved to some sort of penal colony. And Biden's like, let's get her back now.
Well, even KJP yesterday morning at 5 o'clock our time was tweeting about Brittany Griner. I'm like, it's the morning after an election and you're tweeting about Brittany Griner?
Is that on Joe's to-do list when he wakes up in the morning, he's eating his rice pudding for breakfast, try to win the election, and then free Brittany Griner? Is that
it has to be
priorities 1 and 2?
And it's on no one else's radar at this point. On my radar is that Biden's taking an international trip. Apparently, he's trying to get a meeting with Xi Jinping. And it's almost like when you're trying to get a meeting with someone who's really important and you can't even get the meeting. Apparently, we're having conversations to try to arrange a meeting, but no one's confirming that meeting will even take place. Obviously, the tension is growing over Taiwan, and we need to have a meeting.
And that's your daily DC Rundown with Stephanie Bell. We are getting great comments at 874-9390. I want you to text us. Why is 50% of the folks, at least here in mid-Missouri, didn't get out and vote? Why do people not vote?
Because I believe if you vote, you have no right to complain. People like to twist that around. I know. They say, well, if you don't vote, you have no right to complain. But where's the logic in that? If you vote and you elect dishonest, incompetent people, and they get into office and screw everything up, well, you are responsible for what they have done. You caused the problem. You voted them in. You have no right to complain. I, on the other hand, who did not vote, who, in fact, did not even leave the house on election day, am in no way responsible for what these people have done and have every right to complain as loud as I want about the mess you created that I had nothing to do with.
I think there's two reactions right now. Folks are angry. I disagree with George Carlin. Or they're laughing because there's some truth to that, maybe. If you voted for these people in office, then yeah, you are to blame, John. It's your fault. Yeah, just complain. You have that right. You could do whatever you want. I'm a libertarian, and if I don't vote, I'm still going to complain because I'm a libertarian. I can do what I want. But folks who don't get out and vote, Jay Ashcroft telling us yesterday, like 50% roughly voter turnout in Missouri, and that holds true in mid-Missouri, Cole, Boone counties, right? Both about 50% and as much. And I'll go back even to the primary in August. Everybody talking the number one race in Missouri in that August primary.
That Senate race.
Yeah.
If more people, I mean, the outcome could have significantly changed if more people would have shown up.
And I don't recall what the voter turnout in the state of Missouri was, but I remember it was below 25% in Boone County. I think in Cole County, was it about a quarter of registered voters showed up, John? 30?
And I mean, Schmidt ran away with it. And I think most of his, he had tons of people on the ground knocking doors and conferring with voters. And that's how I forgot, what was the percentage? It was like 15, 18. It was huge. But that was, I think, part of his strategy was, hey, if I just turn my people out to the polls and make sure they vote, and I think that's how he ended up with such a high percentage. I think, no one else kind of had that number of volunteers and that significant of a ground game. So he used it to his advantage. But certainly, what was our percentage turnout? 30-something?
30% in Cole County
terrible.
in the primary in August, and Boone County, I think, maybe 25%. But everybody was talking about the Greitens factor.
Everybody in your circle.
Exactly right.
The people on the golf course. Yeah. Or like busy parents at swim lessons. I don't know. I mean, for you and I, it is all consuming. For other people, I mean, there are a lot of people who this weekend is their Super Bowl, right? Because it's deer season weekend, right? Wow. And if you ask me, I have a brother who hunts and a dad who sometimes hunts. So I know when it is. But if you asked me any questions or, I would have no clue about all the things that need to be done for deer hunting, just like I'm sure there are people out there who don't care about elections.
But how many conservative Republicans were saying abortion's not going to be an issue in this election? And on Fox, more than once yesterday, you had Republican talking heads saying we underestimated the strength of the abortion issue. We know what the Democrats think about that. We know what we think. But that doesn't matter. We've already got us. We're in the same room. We're all getting the same echo. It's those people in the middle, the people that are trying to figure things out, regretful Biden voters. More than once yesterday on Fox, they're saying women turned out. It was the abortion issue, hence them voting for Democrats. But a lot of Republicans, I think, didn't see that because, to your point, I'm thinking everybody's talking about our 2022 Senate primary because of the Greitens factor, and we've got 1 out of 5 voters showing up. I think it's the same thing with abortion. We didn't think it was that big of an issue because we're all surrounded by the same people.
I think we think it's a big issue. I think for a lot of Republicans, I think there are a lot of people who privately think it's a big issue but will not talk about it out loud. And I think in Missouri you have a lot of women, a lot of conservative women who would like to see exceptions in the law for things like rape and incest. But if they were in a room full of conservatives, they would never say a bad word about any pro-life measure ever. But in the ballot box, I think for certain people it showed up.
874-9390. Great comments on why voter turnout is so low. Your text, 874-9390. We have several of them, but want to chat with Branden, checking in Lake of the Ozarks this morning. What's on your mind, Branden?
Hey, Brandon. Thank you for having me. Hey, I just wanted to call DeLunk in Pennsylvania died last month, still gets 85% of the votes. I ran across a post on that on Facebook, and I thought it was a Babylon Bee ad or something. So I went ahead and fact-checked it myself. Read a New York Post ad, New York Post article about it that said that whoever they talked to claims that, everybody knew the guy was dead, but they voted for him because they didn't want a third-party candidate to win, and they also wanted to have a special runoff election. My opinion is, if you're going to vote in a guy, Fetterman, that can't even finish a sentence, I think that you're probably just stupid and not know that the guy died, and you're just so stuck in your ways wanting to keep a Democrat in office that you vote for a guy that's not even alive.
Brandon, hot take. I love it. Remember in Missouri, we elected a dead person to office several years ago, Brandon, to your Mel Carnahan. We elected a dead guy to
There were several
office.
dead people elected on Tuesday. I don't know I know there were at least two, but I think in local races there were a few as well. There have been articles about the list of dead people elected.
We had a dead guy elected to the White House in 2020. 874-93. Sorry. So why people didn't get out and vote? 50%, mid-Missouri, 50% of the state of Missouri turning out to vote. So the other 50%, that people that are already registered to vote, and it's more difficult. It's more of a task to register to vote than to vote.
But not really, because you only, that's Cherie Reich's whole point is once you register, they never take you off the rolls. So
Even when you die.
Even when you die. And
move.
so, if you ask me when I registered to vote, maybe I have no idea. It was 5 minutes of my time 20 years ago or whenever. A lot of people are on college campuses. They throw the registration in your face. You say, yep, I'll do that. They mail it in. You get your voter card, and then you're registered for life. So, there are a lot of people out there who probably got, I wouldn't say bullied, but got convinced to register to vote, who really don't have a lot of interest in elections and who probably have not voted consistently ever.
One of those sign up the voter campaign, rock the vote campaign. Oh, well, yeah, I'm going to go register, and all these kids get together because all the other cool kids are doing it. We go and register, and then nothing. Why didn't people get out and vote? One of our listeners says her husband said she had to encourage him to get out and vote. His response: my one vote doesn't matter. Roy Lovelady, Carl Scala. Well, another one of our listeners, Stephen, said, I had to work an 18-hour shift. I was not able to vote on Tuesday. I think there's laws that have to do with your workplace has to let you go vote.
Yeah, Section 115639 of the revised statutes of Missouri say you get 3 hours off work to vote, and that if your employer interferes, it's a Class 4 election offense. Of course, you have to make a request, and there are other things. You should read this section. Again, it's 115639, but essentially, if you have a job and you request and say, hey, I need an hour or 2 or 3 off to vote, you're going to get it. Oh, you did? Oh, gosh. I did. I have heard, and not that I think our elections went really smoothly Tuesday, but I have heard, especially in the cities, folks who did try to do the no excuse absentee balloting, because oftentimes there was only one, like in Ashland, there was one library. Centralia, same thing, which doesn't matter if you're in Ashland. It does matter if you're somewhere like in St. Louis and there's only 1 or 2 places. And so I did hear for no excuse absentee, particularly on the Saturday and Sunday before the election, that the lines were really long and people were walking away. And actually, for some people, the lines were shorter on Election Day than the no excuse. So I think that's something, that was the first time we had ever done that. So I think we want to look at that going forward to make sure that, we've got enough places that people aren't, because I feel like I know I would wait an hour in line, but there are a lot of people in my life who would not.
Yeah. And the other thing that I have found interesting, and even in a great story in the Jefferson City News Tribune, Joe Gamm did, talking to people after they voted, what is it that brought you to the polls? And they quote some of the voters to say, man, I'm really pleased with the turnout. Tuesday here, Steph and John and I were taking all these texts and calls. Man, turnout is huge. I've never seen it like this, especially for a midterm. And that's 50% turnout. And we're going, man, what would happen if even 75% of registered voters showed up? What would that be like? 874-9390. Alan says it's not the abortion issue. It was Trump. And I'll tell you, you're not the only one saying that, Alan. James Carville, obviously, he could say that on Fox. You had Kayleigh McEnany saying, Trump, please don't do this. Don't announce a presidential run. Mark Thiessen, who was the only guy from the Washington Post that defended Trump for several years while he was in office, he was on Fox yesterday saying a couple of things. Number one, it was election denial, and it is the whole Trump thing. Don't misunderstand me. Hannah, did I ever tell you the story about 2015?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Good Lord.
Because people, well, just so you know, I'm not an ever-Trumper, but as somebody who's a big proponent of Trump's policies, it's just not good anymore. James Carville, what did he think? How come this big red wave that everybody was talking about, how come it didn't happen?
You put everything in a computer, we should have lost 57 seats. Yeah. Easy. Yeah. 4 or 5 Senate seats. And
now, when he says we should have lost 57 Senate seats, we is the Democrats.
the reason is really Donald Trump. I mean, he brought people out to vote against this. He had a suppressive effect. He out-trumped inflation. He out-trumped crime. He out-trumped the normal cycle of the first off-year election with an incumbent president. I mean, I think when political historians unearth this, they're going to find so much more that we missed this morning.
So, in other words, Trump found it. The idea of Trump the idea of the economy, and I don't know if I go for that either.
I don't know that it was Trump's fault. I do think it is our own fault. I think we did this to ourselves. I don't know if we have time for this now, but I do think we did this to ourselves. And but I wouldn't blame it entirely on Trump. But I think it comes back to something that Caleb Rowden said almost 2 years ago. Yeah. I think that's where we're going with this.
And he said, education, education, education.
And he said, we have to talk about the issues. And so I think, when we blame the people of Pennsylvania and we say, I can't believe you voted for Fetterman. Oh my gosh, he's so stupid. He's at half capacity. I mean, we're not talking about why you should vote for Oz. You know why? Because we don't know why you should vote for Oz, because he's not a very good candidate. And so we lost sight of telling people why to vote for our candidate, and we just talked about, well, that guy is stupid and he's ugly and he has a hunchback and whatever. And we stopped talking about the issues. And I think, going back, if I'm in Pennsylvania, I will vote for a half capacity Missourian all day long before I will vote for someone from Kansas for the Missouri Senate seat. And we forget that Dr. Oz wasn't even from Pennsylvania. And so, the issues there, we lost sight of the issues in that race, and I think we did it to ourselves. And I think if Trump gets back on the ballot, we're going to be talking about personality, character. We're going to get away from issues, and we're going to be stuck in the past. And we'll lose again like we did on Tuesday.
I think Trump and Republicans picking bad candidates.
It was bad.
Herschel Walker, Sarah Palin. Coming up 5 minutes from now, honoring a country
She's doesn't get around too good now. But it's been affecting me for years, and it's getting more and more obvious, and I know I'm stumbling around on stage, and now I'm having a little trouble balancing even in front of the microphone, and so I just feel very uncomfortable, and I just want people to know that's why I look like I do if they're wondering, and I don't want to appear like some whiny celebrity. It's not going to kill me. It's not deadly, but it is related like muscular dystrophy and Parkinson's disease, but it's not fatal. It's just going to disable me eventually. But
that's Alan Jackson, country music legend. So like when I used to work country music back in the day.
Yikes.
I know. That was my wheelhouse.
I still cannot see it. I can't see you doing country music radio or top 40 radio.
Yeah.
I just don't see it.
That's funny because there's a lot of people right now that don't see me doing talk radio either. Alan Jackson. So he was in my wheelhouse back in the mid-'90s, man. Back in the 90s, it was country. It was Alan Jackson. Tim McGraw. It was Faith Hill. Garth Brooks made country music what it is. You had all these great country artists. So I was really pleased to hear that he was awarded with a CMA Lifetime Achievement Award. He'd been married for 42 years. This kid, little kid, Alan Jackson, saw a movie about Hank Williams. Said, man, I want to do that. Dude packs up his stuff, says, Mom, Dad, I'm moving to Nashville. And he shows up to Nashville, and he's got absolutely nothing, as is pretty common with a lot of these success stories. But he gets there, and, of course, as they say, the rest is history. At 64 years old. And what's really cool, because he's just a genuinely nice guy. Everybody likes the guy. They love his music. He was recently diagnosed with a neurological degenerative disease, and that's what you kind of heard him talking about there. He says, because he's had it for a while but didn't want to say anything because, I don't want to go out. I don't want people to, oh, my God, I got cancer. Give me love on social media and tell me how much you're going to miss me when I'm going to die and all this stuff. He says, I don't want to do that. It's just something I deal with in my life. But he says the one reason, did you hear the reason why he wanted to let people know that he's got this neurological disorder? Because his appearance on stage sometimes when he stumbles around and stuff, because of his neurological disorder, he didn't want people to think that he was drunk or on drugs.
That's fair.
Yeah. He's a real straight shooter, really good guy. Cool to see Alan Jackson getting honored with that award last night. I think the other thing that is really cool, one of the things that we are excited about, something we've been doing for a while now here at 93.9 The Eagle and 104.5 News Radio 950, our holiday wish. This holiday season, usually it's a time of joy and celebrations, but a lot of folks, it's not fun. I know this from being a poor kid in South St. Louis. Christmas wasn't always what it was always cracked up to be for the other kids. That's why we're trying to help. We've teamed up with Hibbett Sports, Love Columbia, and Common Ground Coffee in Jefferson City to help Mid-Mo have a happier holiday season. So if you know someone, hey, these folks, maybe you could do something for them. Just tell us what's going on and how we can help. So the first thing you want to do, if you know somebody, you think, yeah, I'd like see if you guys can help. Go to our website, it's 939theeagle.com. You can also go to kwos.com, and you look for our holiday wish easy tab. Submit your wish here. Coming up, 7:10. So marijuana, you can legally possess 3 grams or less of marijuana on December the 8th. It'll be legal. But where do you buy? I don't think it's legal to buy it yet off the streets.
Well, they have to implement a licensing program, and the folks that are currently selling medical have to do that. So they need some time. Early 2023.
We might look at that coming up here at 7:10 on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
And another thing that we know is that voters spoke clearly about their concerns about raising costs, the rising costs that they're in, and the need to get inflation down. There's still a lot of people hurting. They're very concerned.
Still doesn't know what he's talking about. That was his big victory lap speech, if you will, yesterday. Joe Biden, at the White House. We heard your concerns. Voters voted on the economy. No, they did not. They did not vote. If they would have voted on the economy and inflation, more and more people would have voted red nationwide. Bottom line on these nationwide races this morning, still 3 big races that we're waiting on as it relates to control of the United States Senate.
Well, really, we're watching Arizona and Nevada. What we know about Georgia is it's going to go to a runoff. I think we need 2 of 3. So if Republicans win Arizona and Nevada, we're in good shape. I hope it all doesn't come down to Georgia. That didn't go well for us the last time, but they will be going to a runoff. I think there's still quite a bit of votes out in Arizona. Tweets I saw yesterday said it could be next week before we know exactly. I'm hoping not, but it's looking hopeful for Republicans at least.
Hope, to quote the movie Shawshank Redemption. Hope is a good thing in that gubernatorial race in Arizona with Kari Lake and her challenger. That's not a done deal yet either. So basically, right now in the Senate, makeup of the Senate, 49 Republicans, 48 Democrats. 3 Senate seats left in play. The one Steph just told you about, the runoff December 6th in Georgia, and then Nevada and Arizona. That is what we are waiting on this morning. So I think those are the 3 big things nationally, and then we can move on from here. Yeah?
I mean, other than DeSantis is the new king, right?
DeSantis is a thing. And the thing, but welcome into the show. This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri. There's Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
Mr. John Marsh is here, as is Brian Houseworth.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning to you, sir.
There's producer Hannah.
Yo.
By the way, we got to fact check something.
Uh-oh.
Guess who messed up? Guess which one of it was in this room that messed up?
You?
Probably me.
I don't know. I'm going to say all of the above.
What a safe answer.
What a nice. Can we get a round of applause for Mr. Brian Houseworth? Good work, man. You should run for office. I did. I was talking about Amendment 3, and I said it allows up to 3 grams of marijuana, and our text is blowing up because it's only 3 ounces. I don't know the difference. Listen, my drug measurements ain't all up to date and stuff. Do you buy an ounce of cocaine, a gram of cocaine? Do you buy an ounce of weed, a gram of weed? I don't know how that works. And when these things are legally available for purchase, the weed in January, I mean, we're talking 2 months from now, when you go in and buy this stuff, I don't know the proper shopping etiquette for recreational weed. I don't know how that works.
Or what the terminology for smoking it is. What'd Brian say the other day? Taking a deep pull.
And that's what they said. I'll tell you, that came from...
I don't know if that's right or not.
They came from Twitter because what happened is the people at this Columbia restaurant the other night, Emily Manley did a live shot, a very, very good TV reporter that works around the state, primarily at Channel 2. And she went live, and it's not legal right now. Yeah, it passed, but it has not gone into effect. And all these people, she's doing her live shot, all these people are smoking marijuana on live television.
You don't know if they have their medical card. They could all have their medical card.
There was everybody in the restaurant, so they would have all had to have had their medical cards.
Wait, so. Stephanie, but you're saying there was a chance.
There's a chance that it was all fully legal.
Well, and I will go back to, let me play some comments here from Dan Vietz, Missouri coordinator for the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, otherwise known as NORML, chatting with ABC 17.
December 8 is the date when possession of up to 3 ounces by adults in Missouri, anywhere, anytime, will be legal.
So, December the 8th, possession is legal, but I guess the thing I'm not getting, it's not legal to buy. So you could possess it, the recreational weed, but wouldn't you still have to utilize illegal means to go buy it? If I were to go up to like Clark Lane somewhere and go see if I could buy some weed in Columbia.
That's a great point.
I could possess it, but I can't sell it or I can't buy it.
Again, these are legal questions, and we're going to work. I will say this: Dan Vietz, an attorney here in town who I've known for years. I mean, he is someone who has worked on this issue for a long time. He knows these laws. He's been pushing for this forever. But the biggest thing, Brandon, that sticks out to me is we've covered this is I remember, and John will remember this, 25 years ago, this was so unheard of. There was a gentleman who ran for the legislature multiple times. His name on the ballot was Chief Wannadoobie. That's how his name read. Oh, that's right.
And he was on this show.
No,
he was on this show several times. And he ran for
state representative. Well, and he also challenged Jason Kander in the Democratic primary for U.S. Senate. Now, he has since passed away. Chief Wannadoobie ran on the ballot, and I remember a consultant at the radio station I was working at in Jefferson City basically told me, why are you covering this? Is 25, maybe 20 years ago. Why are you covering this? This is not California, and this will never happen. And at the time, it was unheard of. The callers were just irate. They thought this was just ridiculous, people wanting to smoke marijuana. But it goes to show you the mentality of voters has changed a little bit. Of course, it failed in most of the outlying counties, but Wannadoobie was actually Chief Wannadoobie.
That's what we called him back. It's technically Chief Wannadoobie, but we just call him Wannadoobie.
Basically, what he was trying to do 25 years ago, although I think he went a little bit further in what he was calling for, was basically what they're trying to do now. But he ran multiple times for the legislature.
His name came up on Tuesday when I was having an intellectual discussion with others about our friend who's in the National Guard who was going to show up to vote. And of course, that was on the ballot. And it was like, well, if you're in your uniform, is that electioneering? And we all kind of agreed, probably not. But then the question was, and in other states, they've actually said you can wear a T-shirt. It's your First Amendment right to wear whatever T-shirt you want. But here, there still is a prohibition on electioneering. And Wannadoobie came up because remember he had a marijuana leaf tattoo on his forehead.
Yes, he did.
And
Of course.
so
Of course.
what
Why
about
not?
him walking in to vote on marijuana with the marijuana tattoo? I feel like
I don't know that. Well, obviously, unless
you need to Google a picture of him, Hannah.
I definitely remember that. There is no doubt about that. There was. Yeah. Yeah, 96 for sure, and I think he ran in 94. And then he may have tried to run a couple of times. But you are absolutely right, John. And it was just unheard. And those were Democratic controlled legislators and Republicans both. They were in agreement that was not something they wanted to do. Real quick point about Stephanie in what she talked about as far as electioneering. There is a state representative from the Kansas City area, Ashley Awney, who is kind of a rising star on the Democratic side, very young, bright, and I've talked to her, and she's just got reelected. When she went to the polls the other day, and I got this directly from her Twitter page, one of the election judges was wearing elephant earrings.
Insert eye roll emoji here.
And the representative complained, and they...
Hold up, who is wearing elephant earrings?
Now, again, I'm going by what the representative said on Twitter. She said an election to poll worker was actually wearing elephant earrings, and the representative complained because she felt like it was kind of towards the Republican side. I believe they had to take the earrings off. Now, she had both support, people that agree with her, but also I noticed a lot of criticism of the representative. Some people were calling her a Karen. But again, this gets back to what you're talking about as far as I'd not heard of that before, but apparently the elephant earrings, and you probably may have seen the same thing.
Yeah, no, I saw the Twitter piece. I would not advise people to wear, elephant anything into the polling place. But her tweet was like, oh, it's gonna, it could affect the if you walk into the polls and you're like, well, that lady sure has some nice elephant earrings. I was gonna vote all Democrat. Now I'm gonna check all, So I think the prohibition on election.
Changed my mind.
Right, the prohibition is right, but at what point? Again, what if you just had a plain red baseball cap on?
Or what if you walk into a polling place and you're acting like a jackass? Could that be considered electioneering if you're acting like the
What if you were... at what point does the color red? Literally, what if you wear all red? Is that considered now suddenly something else? I don't know.
That's a good point.
874-9390. More from Dan Vietz from Normal, chatting with our friends at ABC 17.
Now, you can't use in public...
you can't legally, but
they did it on television the other night, live.
Oh, even better than that? Two big takeaways from the homecoming parade. Steph Bell and I emceed a couple of weeks ago, one of the most well-known, first, largest, whatever you want to call it, homecoming parades in all of America. And two big takeaways. What a great event. The other big takeaway in my mind,
it smelled a lot like marijuana.
reeked of weed down there. Like, not just for a minute or two, like it would be there, and then it was gone. And we've all been smelling this stuff out in public anyway. So, yeah, I do think people will be smoking it everywhere.
That's still illegal, but it's decriminalized. No longer a criminal offense, but we don't expect to see people using marijuana on the streets and sidewalks.
I'm hoping more people just convert to edibles, and that way then we don't have to smell it. And I've heard, I mean, I don't know, but I've heard that, there's lots of different kinds, and they've gotten better, and there's a variety that you can pick your favorite.
So...
And Dan, by the way, he knows this stuff. He's a lawyer. He probably helped write it, but he is absolutely right. You're not supposed to smoke that in public. You're not supposed to do it. And again, I wasn't at the restaurant, but it was on live television, and they were smoking it in the restaurant.
Off the text, 874-9390. My wife smokes. I don't, but 3 grams. You said 3 grams of marijuana. That's a very small amount. 3 grams for my wife is like 2 hours of smoking. Now, see, you're putting it in terms that I can understand, because I'm guessing the majority of folks, I don't know how you measure the weed and how you, I remember from high school in little joints is what we call them. And apparently, people don't even use joints anymore.
So, you know how I sometimes give you grief for putting the word "the" in front of things that are unnecessary?
Like the Facebook,
the Twitter. You keep saying the weed every time.
Do I?
Oh, is it?
The weed. It's a title. Well, I just think it's interesting. And I want to say, too, I was listening back. My newest favorite podcast to listen to, like when I'm just chilling.
Wake Up Mid-Missouri?
Yeah, it is, actually. You guys, John.
Wait, your new favorite?
Yeah, wait a minute.
It used to be Wake Up Columbia.
Huh.
No, but the podcast you can check out every day on our websites, kwos.com, 939theeagle.com. But, yeah, you guys, you're a good bunch of folks to... Oh, so yeah, here's the marijuana thing. It's occurred to me. I think I've been open, and I don't like to talk about it a whole lot, but I got sober a couple years ago. When I put drugs or booze into my body, it causes me problems, and I couldn't quit. It caused major problems for a lot of years, and I went to my first treatment center in 1986, and by 2019, when I was tucked in there again, or 2022 is my 13th treatment center. And I'm not laughing. I am sober today, 806 days without a drink or whatever. But I wanted to say I should probably be a little bit more serious on the marijuana thing. I don't want to appear flippant about it. I think that you should be able to use marijuana. It's not something that I would use. And you know why I don't use it? Because it caused me problems. It's not physically addictive, but I just wanted to mention, I apologize if I've been being too flippant about it. I don't use it because it causes me problems.
Yeah, for me it's really exciting, because for a lot of people that I know, like in the veteran space, and a lot of other people who are on who are on pain meds and those kind of things, pain meds can be very dangerous, and whether or not
those are physically addictive.
Yeah, and so whether you're suffering from cancer or some other thing, I know people in my own life who use marijuana to relieve pain, and that allows them to not ingest other chemicals or pills or things that can be very dangerous to folks. So, I think it provides an alternative for some people that in many ways it could be safer. And I'm really, and for me, going from no marijuana to medical, I mean, I don't even notice. It's not something that affects my everyday life, and I just don't think I'm going to see a big change. But for people who suffer from intense pain every day, I'm excited that they have an alternative.
And we've got to move forward. I want to do what's hot with Hannah, but the other thing, do you think all of a sudden in January, when you can go and buy this stuff, is there all of a sudden going to be like a bull rush at the recreational weed stores? All these people have never done marijuana before going, oh, it's legal, I'm going to use it now. I don't. I mean, I just wonder if it's something like people, now I'm going to start using, now that it's legal, I'm okay using it. What's hot with Hannah?
We talked about the Powerball winner this week, but there was another winner in Arkansas, of all places.
Good morning, 7:25-ish, which means it's...
Ooh, it's 7:28.
I'm regressing just like this nation after Tuesday night. Time for What's Hot? What's Hot with Hannah? What do you have for us today?
We've been talking a lot about the Powerball lately and how I guess one person hit it big in Southern California. The state of California, unfortunately, not California, Missouri, where I live. But there's somebody else that got really lucky in Arkansas this week. And it's a married couple. They were from Minnesota. They were going to Arkansas for their 11-year wedding anniversary. They went to the Crater of Diamonds State Park, where...
I've always wanted to do this.
I guess you can go, like, mine diamonds, basically. I guess just this year alone, over 500 diamonds have been found. Most of them are very small or very low-quality diamonds, so it's not like a big payday.
But it's something.
Yeah, it's something. These guys found a 1.9 carat diamond, and that is something. That's
How much? 1.9 carats? How is that in ounces or grams?
Okay.
That's a big old rock.
It is a big old rock. So that's like the find of a lifetime at this place.
How about that? There have been, several success stories from this year. It's in Arkansas. Stephanie likes to go to Arkansas and play there sometimes. And so that's something you've wanted to do, go play in that mine.
Yeah, I've been there. And I think when we went out to Colorado, too, we looked at it and we were going to take the kids. It's something that's on my bucket list. I've always wanted to go. I don't think I'd get that lucky, though.
I think it's the only place in the world where you can just open to the public, go look for these stones.
I imagine myself with that little thing that you had at the beach, like the sifter thing, just...
I like to dig for diamonds like at Book Raiders in downtown Columbia. I know I'm always going to score there. Coming up 5 minutes from now, Scott Faughn, Missouri Times, host of the TV show This Week in Missouri Politics. Who might be the next attorney general? What are the chances of it being Stephanie Bell?
people are saying, you know what, it's already decided. I've already done what I could in the primary. It's locked in because I'm in a blue district or I'm in a red state. And I think that probably has contributed to people not participating.
Secretary of State Jay Ashcroft, his opinion on why he thinks there was lower voter turnout in Missouri, 50% roughly across the state, and that mirrors what we saw in Cole County, mirrors what we saw in Boone County, about 50%. If this is something, and again, maybe I am in an echo chamber, but I think everybody's talking about this. Most important midterm of our time, most important midterm election, at least in recent memory, and you get 50% turnout. Folks been texting us this morning. Why is it that you're registered to vote, but why are you then not going out to vote? Is it just because I surround myself with people like John Marsh and Stephanie Bell, Brian Hausworth, and producer Hannah? We care about what's going on, so we pay attention to politics, and we think everybody else is doing the same. We got some interesting comments this morning, too. One guy said, I had to work 18 hours a day. Couldn't get out of work despite the fact there are legal, you have a legal right to vote, by the way, as it relates to your job.
Yeah, on the day of the election, it's Chapter 115, 639, revised statutes. Your employer is supposed to allow you 3 hours off work to vote. Otherwise, it's interference by your employer, which is a Class 4 election offense. You do have to request it, I believe, the day before, so there are some requirements. But if you want to check that out, they should be letting you off to vote.
And then the one of the other great comments we got, a listener saying, hey, my husband, I have to twist his arm. The reason he gives, one vote doesn't matter. Again, Carl Scala, Roy Lovelady, third Ward, City Council, right. Columbia, several months ago, deadlocked vote, more than 2,400 votes cast total in that race. Dead even.
That's exactly right. And I would go even further than that, Brandon, in the 3rd Ward specifically, and I live in the 3rd Ward, and of course I've talked to Mr. Lovelady and former Councilman Scala about it. But Scala won in 7. He won in 7, very tight race. He got beat in 10, came back and won in 13. The ward, it just goes back and forth, and Dudley was in there for a while. It's just that ward, and that's just a perfect example of why one vote counts. But the April election was a tie, and the August election ended up being very, very close, too.
Welcome into the show. So we got Marsh producer Hannah, Brian Hausworth, Stephanie Bell. I'm Branden Rathert. Want to bring in Scott Faughn, Missouri Times host of the TV show This Week in Missouri Politics. Any ideas? 50% turnout, and maybe that's good. I don't know. Maybe to a lot of people, they go, oh, that's pretty good turnout. To me, it seems as much as we talk about this stuff, it's poor turnout. What, in your mind, why is it that a person doesn't go out and vote? They've done all this. They're registering. Somebody Tuesday who didn't get out and vote, what would their excuse have been that day?
Yeah, there's 2 factors. Number one, I think the public, and I would say Republicans, are the ones who, frankly, led the charge on this. Nobody believes any institution in your life has any hope of actually improving your life, be it the schools, be it the state government, federal government. Republicans have bred into people that, hey, the government's worthless. All government should just be cut. There's no government worth anything. And I think part of the reaction to that is people at some point just be like, well, if all this is just worthless and it doesn't do anything for my life, I'll just do other things with my day. I'm not going to do this. Number 2, I think there's a true point. I mean, look, I don't think there's anybody, even your highly educated, highly politically involved listeners know you have a legal right to vote. But I'll just tell you, an old boy who's tiling a bathroom today, he can't take off 3 hours. He's not going to ask his boss, I got to go vote for 3 hours. No one's going to, that's just not a real thing to people. And plus, the lines, I'm going to tell you, I saw these lines. If you're a parent who works a job and the line is an hour long, you are disenfranchised. You just are. And we have chosen as a society that we are not going to invest enough money or trust technology enough to allow you to vote in a timely manner. And it's much worse in St. Louis. I'm not this or the guy that walks around crying a river for our St. Louis friends. But the fact is, if you live in St. Louis, if you have 2 kids and a job, I think there's a very good case that you're disenfranchised by a line that's more than an hour. And I think that all those things come together for low turnout. Plus, Brandon, I got to say you were right. I convinced myself you were wrong, but it wasn't a wave. There were women in some of these House districts in Missouri that absolutely abortion mattered. They are people that had previously voted Republican consistently. that have now decided to vote Democrat this time. And it can't be the economy. It's way worse than 2 years ago. I don't know what else it could possibly be. Normally, you would see those people vote even more for the party who's not holding the White House. I think you picked up on this months out, and we kind of got – I mean, I kind of felt like you'd even talked yourself out of it. There was going to be a red wave. I didn't agree with you anymore. But your take from about 3 weeks ago was right, and I think it was borne out Tuesday night.
Well, it was following the Dobbs decision, and I said, this is something because, and here's what it is for me, Scott. We know Republicans know what Republicans think, Dems know what they think, and they've got the people under their tents. It's all of those people that are filtering around the tents, and in my opinion, they're looking at the big issues, and the majority of people, and they have been, by the way, for a lot of years, the majority of Americans consistently and for a long time are okay with some type of abortion. And we started, and so I thought that was going to have some kind of effect. And then we started to see Republicans starting to soften their stances, using phrases like, yeah, it's okay in some circumstances, and this is another, in my opinion, a cop-out when they're asked about their opinion about it. Well, it's a state's issue, which is accurate, but they started backing away from giving their strong, supposedly firm beliefs on abortion, but all of a sudden they got real soft on it when it got real.
Well, I think they can read polling. Look, the fact is you have some politicians that are they get into politics because of abortion or religious issues, which a lot of people conflate the two. I think most people got into politics, and I think when someone says they're pro-life, they mean it. But there's a lot of nuance. It may be the most nuanced issue in all of politics, and I think most politicians. I mean, they were people. They were politicians. Most politicians are sort of there. It's like, hey, I think it's wrong. I would not want my daughter, or if as a guy, if someone was pregnant with my child, I'm not sure I'd want them to abort it. But a lot of things in this world we consider wrong that we don't consider illegal. And I think that's kind of where it came down for a lot of people. And I think quietly, without banging a bunch of drums or sending a bunch of tweets off, I think quietly, there are just statistically, I just don't know what else you could possibly blame it on. There are women that went to the polls who had typically voted Republican that voted Democrat this time. Now, how long does that go on? We'll see. But I think, Brandon, you picked up on the subtle, and again, it wasn't something people were out writing Facebook posts about. It was a subtle thing of you're taking away something from me that I'm not comfortable with. And again, it wasn't you're in the tent. I love that analogy. It was people that were outside the tent kind of milling around, looking inside both tents and being like, you know what? I just think the facts are that there's some women that said, no, I'm not in. I was in for everything else, but not this.
So Democrats had a pretty good night as far as the Missouri House goes, better than they've had in the past. And yesterday, the House elected leadership. What do you make of those leadership elections?
Well, John Patterson's a doctor from Lee Summit, Missouri. I think that if you were already elected to the House, I think you kind of just base your thought on who you think is best for you, who's going to give you the best chairmanship, who's going to put you on the best committee, who's going to reach out and, who has your temperament, right? Who has the leadership style you want? And the two guys are very similar politically, but, Mike Hafner is a military guy. He comes in with a plan and a binder, and he executes his plan. Patterson probably might be a little more approachable, I think they'd say. Kind of what do you want? You want a guy coming in with a lockdown plan that's going to roll, or do you want a guy that's going to probably be a little more open to listening and be a little more collaborative? And they've had a system that's kind of top down for a while. I think they want to try a system bottom up. But the hack here is the fact is, Dean Plocker did everything he could do, the new speaker, to not show favoritism, but because Patterson was an open supporter of his opponent, and Hafner was a supporter of Dean's. That caucus has a funny way of always picking the one they think the speaker's not going to vote for. And I think they did it again in a very close vote, by the way. Very close.
Scott, we appreciate you joining us live as always. I appreciate your analysis. And I want to follow up on Stephanie's question about the leadership, because a lot of focus on Dr. Patterson and Hafner, and certainly about Dean Plocker, who's going to be going with the governor today, and Senator Williams for that matter. But I'm interested in the next speaker pro tem, and you know him well, and I know him. His name is Mike Henderson. I think a lot of our listeners may not know him, but he's a veteran lawmaker. He's from Bonne Terre, chairs the Workforce Development Committee. Tell us your impression of him and specifically his style, Scott Faughn. Mike Henderson from Bonne Terre.
Well, I think there was a major undercurrent of that race, and it is Mike Henderson is a former superintendent. He is a defender of public education. That is, if you want to talk about the issue, people come to him and ask him, how would this bill actually work in a school? And I think what you saw was that caucus deciding that, he's a very easygoing guy. He's very approachable, very, 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 I guess the word when I think of Mike Henderson is very much gentlemanly. But I think what you probably saw is that caucus saying, look, we're okay with trying some more of this school reform. But we want to do things that make sense in real life, not on Facebook. And I think you'd had under the previous speakership, whatever the craziest person on Facebook came up with was regarding schools they were for. And I think kind of like with Branden, what he observed was if you're in the tent, oh yeah, close all the schools or horsewhip all the superintendents or whatever silly stuff you'd come up with, he was all for that. But I think you're seeing those members being like, okay. I mean, we're willing to look at some school stuff, but 2 + 2 has to equal 4. The trains have to run on time. And I think Mike Henderson was a vote to say, I don't think it was all a vote to say we're not going to do any more school reform. I think it was a vote to say it's going to have to make sense. And we want Mike Henderson at that table in that leadership room to make sure that it's just not some kind of lobbyist-driven, silly think tank stuff. It's actually real things.
All right, Scott Faughn, Missouri Times, This Week in Missouri Politics, hanging out with us. Would you mind to hang out for like 5 minutes? Because we got a lot of folks asking, hey, who do we think might be the next attorney general? And seriously, there was an article written by one Mr. Scott Faughn. One of the folks that the governor should be considering is the my friend sitting to the left of me, Stephanie Bell. If you can hang out for 5 minutes, I would like to talk about who you think might slide into that spot and what you think Stephanie Bell's chances are, okay?
I'd love it. You bet.
All right, cool. We'll have more with Scott Faughn, Missouri Times, This Week in Missouri Politics. Also going to find out who he has
Fetterman as a nominee at some point for president.
Yeah. Settle down, MSNBC. Whoa. Scott Faughn, Missouri Times, hanging out with us. Also hosts a TV show this week in Missouri politics. MSNBC got a little excited about what Democrats did on Tuesday. Now they're talking Fetterman for president. Holy cow.
Wow, that'd be awesome. Well, I tell you what, if you were tired of your president saying too many words, welcome to John Fetterman.
Our guest, Scott Faughn, Missouri Times, great publication dealing with Missouri politics and talking about how these things affect you. I would check that out. Also hosts a TV show this week in Missouri politics. Scott Faughn hanging out with us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 93.9 The Eagle and 104.5 News Radio 950 KWOS.
From the time I've came on this show, and this has been this became a topic in the spring when Schmidt started to do well. By July, when he had established him as the front runner, the talk escalated a little bit, but it was such an interesting primary. Everybody thought it was focused on that. But after August, you've kind of known this was going to be the case. Andrew Bailey, the governor's general counsel, I've always thought was the leader of the clubhouse in this. He was going to be his decision first. If he pursued it, he was likely going to be the guy. I think Andrew, as you get to know him on your show and your listeners, he's a veteran. He's a war hero by every definition. He's got just this great judgment. He is not a guy. He comes from humble roots. He's not a guy that's an ambitious guy. He's made the most of his opportunities, and he's almost too nice. He reminds me of Bob Holden in the sense that he's almost too nice to really be in politics. So it's going to be very interesting, and it's going to be enjoyable for the folks in Missouri to get to know a guy who truly is a humble, really good dude. Qualified, I would say he's the leader in the clubhouse. You can kind of chart it like this. The governor leaves for Israel about noon today. He's going on a trade mission. Israel, Greece, a few other countries. If he makes a decision this morning, I kind of think it's going to be Andrew. If he makes a decision, if he doesn't make the decision before he leaves, then it's still, I still think it's probably Andrew is the top of the list if he still wants it. I should say. But if not, then you have a whole host of other people, and I think the list might expand just a hair, even with that much time.
How about this? So, I know she won't take the pay cut from her position here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Doesn't want the pay cut. But Stephanie Bell, there's been some talk seriously about Stephanie Bell, high-powered. I say high-powered. I don't think she likes the phrasing. Attorney Ellinger and Associates, Jefferson City. There's been talk about Stephanie Bell potentially taking the AG spot.
100%. I mean, look, here's the thing. Their law firm has been red hot. I mean, and that's just the facts. I mean, I guess they keep a record of these wins at the courthouse. And it was a very good time to be red hot and scoring wins on some things that are generally thought of as Republican causes. They've done, her and her partner have done very, very well. And also, I mean, having someone that can speak to folks in the media, especially for the Republicans, being a woman, is something very, very valuable. The issue we just talked about, I mean, can you imagine a better person in a presidential year going to a suburban area and talking to women about a whole host of issues, but also answering questions about abortion than Stephanie Bell?
Yep, and we're running out of time here. I think the other thing, I've thought about this before, like she should be the spokesperson for like the Boone County GOP spokesperson, does a great job now, but I'm thinking like Stephanie Bell, if she were just even spokesperson for the Cole County GOP or the Columbia Pachyderms, to put her face and her voice to an organization locally that promotes conservative things, I think she'd be great. We're talking about her like she's not even here.
You think I could help? You think I could help Boone County? I think it might be a lost cause at this point. I don't know. It was a rough night.
If she doesn't do this, I mean, they may come to her and want her to run for state senate. There's going to be a big state senate race there next year. And,
Scott Faughn, Missouri Times, This Week in Missouri Politics, 10 seconds. Who's on your TV show this weekend?
Dr. John Patterson.
Dr.
You're going to get to know him. You're going to love him.
All right, Scott Faughn, always appreciate you hanging out with us here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Coming up, we have Fox News then celebrating a huge birthday at 8:10 with Randy Tobler, host of the Randy Tobler Show, weekday afternoons, 4 o'clock. Who's the big birthday we are celebrating today? Find out at 8:10.
I got this great big knife, cause the hunting is my life. It's my chance to drink beer and get away from the wife. It's the boys' night out, acting stupidly. Say now, baby, don't you think maybe, how about you and me, yeah? Well, we partied all night, never made it to our bunks, and I was sitting in the tree stand on a tree day drunk. Wind was blowing 45, temp 30 below. I was freezing to death, then it started to snow. So I got down from the tree stand, start heading for the truck, and that's when I seen it there, the 30-point buck.
30-point buck.
30-point buck.
Randy Tobler hosts the afternoon show, weekdays 4 to 6 here at the radio station. Are you really in a deer stand this morning right now as you're chatting with us here on Wake Up Mid-Mo?
I'm about 25 foot high in a deer stand watching about a 6-point buck chase a doe. It's like a day. It's like a night at the Alibi, Brandon.
Well, how come,
it's just unbelievable.
Well, why aren't you shooting it?
Well, because it's not a shooter yet. It's not a wall hanger. I'm going to let him grow.
Okay. Did you get drunk last night as implied in DeYuper's song here, the 30-point buck?
Nope. that was funny. Was that Olaf the
Yeah. The group is
that was hilarious.
Yeah, DeYuper's song is called the 30-point buck, getting ready for rifles. So you're out bow hunting right now.
So I may shoot a doe because I love the venison. It's good. You like venison?
Not this time of year.
No. It's delicious. I love the summer sausage, and I love the jerky. I wish my whole freezer was full of it, and I am hopeful for my family members who are hunting this weekend.
I like the deer jerky.
Yeah, it's the last couple of days of bow season, and so the only problem is I'm glad that the Democrats, didn't get swept because it's a little warm out here. The deer like it a little cooler, so I'm hoping we can have more windmills and solar panels, and the climate change will go away.
Welcome into the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Brian Hausworth, John Marsh, producer Hannah, Stephanie Bell. I am Branden Rathert, joined by Randy Tobler, host the afternoon show at 4 in the afternoon.
Brandon, thanks. Very quick traffic note. We've had a few calls, and one of our people here at the radio station has a relative that sent us a picture. There is a head-on collision right now, appears to be a head-on collision. Brandon, not too far from your area, WW, near the El Chaparral subdivision. There's a Casey's there. I can't tell the street. It's a little hard to tell, but it's near there on Broadway, very close to the Casey's. Looks like a head-on collision, and there are multiple emergency vehicles there. Avoid that area if at all possible, and traffic is backing up. Brandon.
All right. Thank you, Brian. We appreciate that. Before we move forward from election stuff, we have a huge birthday today that we'd like to celebrate before Gary Nolan comes on at 9 o'clock. Want to do that. Any more takeaways as it relates to the election? Low turn. We've been wondering here in Missouri, 50% voter turnout across the state. It's pretty much what we saw at least in Cole and in Boone counties. I don't know what Howard, Randolph, Callaway, Montauk counties, don't know what they did. Don't know what Osage did. Why, in your mind, I'm trying to think about this in realistic terms without criticizing anybody. If we have all these registered voters, 50% of registered voters actually go and vote, what is it that keeps somebody from going to the poll on Election Day? Stephanie says, and I think it's a great point, maybe sometimes people go and they get registered and maybe they don't have the intent of voting every single time. Maybe it was one of those voter registration drives. Oh, yeah, let's go register to vote because everybody else is doing it and they're giving away free tacos. And then they don't ever go vote. In your mind, Randy, scenario that somebody would say, yeah, I'm not going to vote today.
Brandon, I've talked to a couple of people, and of course anecdotes are dangerous to key off of, but a couple of people have told me that they tend to be sort of independent type voters, a little more right of center, but still generally independent. And I've heard more than a couple of people say, I voted, but I'm so darn frustrated with the lies, the deceit, the hate, the anger, and you just don't know what to believe anymore. And they said that about both sides. Instead of really getting down and talking about policy matters and politicians talking about specific issues and here's what I would do, it's just the sniping, the personal attacks, and it comes from both sides. That was one thing. And I think it may have been some complacency. Perhaps people heard so much about the red wave and the tsunami that, especially on the right, people may have said, whatever. The rest of the people will take care of it. There's enough buffer there. If I don't make it out, it's not a big deal. That's my speculation. I don't know. I imagine the political scientists will have to figure that out in the wake of this thing.
Scott Faughn from Missouri Times in This Week in Missouri Politics about half an hour ago. He was in Stephanie. You had an interesting conversation with a congresswoman last night. I was talking about lines in St. Louis.
Oh, yeah. Well, I just heard from a number of people that there were lines over the weekend for early voting. And so, usually there was like one or two locations, the library, a couple of others, and people were lined up. And, not everyone's going to wait on a Saturday or a Sunday for an hour. People were actually and I talked to an actual voter who left one of those lines and then came back on Election Day and said the line on Election Day was shorter than the one on Sunday.
So I'm wondering, and Scott Faughn was talking about the lines, and Stephanie's talking to Congresswoman hanging out with Ann Wagner yesterday, because that's how Stephanie Bell rolls, while there's talk about her potentially being picked as the Attorney General to replace Eric Schmidt. He's on his way to the Senate. But maybe there's a lot to that, where the simplicity is sometimes people go, and hey, it's on me to plan, and it's on me to have a backup plan. But if somebody's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to the poll, I get off work, I can be at the poll at 5:30. You're on your way to the poll, you get a call from home, hey, kid got sick, I got to run and go do this. Sometimes things just happen. Or you're driving by a polling place and you're like, man, that's a long line. I got life to live. I don't have time to do this.
Well,
no, you're right. And Brandon, it was interesting. I don't know if you heard the interview with Carrie Lake last night on Tucker's show, but she said in Arizona, they've gone to centralized, and a lot of places did that. I think it happened in a community I used to live in where it consolidated the polling places. So instead of your, many, many different places locally in schools, churches, wherever, that creates longer lines when you have more concentrated and fewer polling places. So maybe there was an element of that too, around the country anyway.
Well, and in your job, maybe somebody is having a baby or emergency surgery. And Scott Faughn brought up a good point. If you're a plumber or somebody else and you work for yourself, you don't get your employer doesn't give you 3 paid hours off. You only get paid if you're working. So, if you're in a position where you're trying to pay your bills, you're trying to put your food, and you have the choice to do this job today or not, or someone has an emergency and you have the opportunity to make some bank, that could be a tough choice for some people, really.
Yeah. Our guest, Randy Tobler, hanging out with us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. He hosts the Randy Tobler Show weekday afternoons 4 to 6 here on the radio station.
Well, they did, and I think though I have to give it to the pollsters because I actually thought they were going to be underestimating GOP turnout, and I think a lot of us assumed that GOP. You heard a lot about the submerged GOP voter that wouldn't give their opinion or wouldn't answer the phone. Pollsters themselves were saying that, but it turns out that things were very close, and in fact, in many cases, ended up with Democrats and incumbents keeping their seats for the most part. And being very tight races still out west. We don't know what's going to happen in Nevada and Arizona. And so, I have to hand it to them, given all of the uncertainty and the difficulties just technically with them doing their job compared to years ago. It turned out, unfortunately, I think more like a lot of the mainstream polls said it was going to.
And where we are right now this morning on a national level, so we know the Georgia election, that is going to a runoff December 6th, less than a month from now. Herschel Walker, Raphael Warnock in a runoff election. So there's 3, and that is one of the 3 Senate seats left in play, because you also have Nevada and Arizona. That's where we are this morning right now. 49 Republicans have guaranteed seats in the Senate compared to 48 Democrats. 3 of them left. One's not going to be decided until the 6th of December, and it may not even be the 6th of December. So we're watching Nevada and Arizona. Also, that that race, the gubernatorial race in Arizona, Carrie Lake, getting a lot of play. That is still undecided. And right now, as we look at the House, 218 is what we need. So we're about 11 back. I should say Republicans have 207 seats in the House right now, 184 for Democrats. That's where we are as we chat with Randy Tobler live from a deer stand this morning. And we get ready for the rifle portion of the season. Opens up tomorrow. Don't forget about chronic wasting stuff. So you're up in a tree stand. I got to ask you this. I know what I'm doing, but I'm a 50-year-old dude, and I think the girls here would get my back on this. Even though I am 51, I don't always behave or act like I'm a 51-year-old man.
Yeah, sometimes you act like an 82-year-old man.
I act like I'm either 16 or 82.
Yeah.
Really?
I would agree with that statement.
Yeah. I have the mindset of an 82-year-old man or an 18-year-old kid. So I know if I'm in a tree stand and I have to go pee, I'm going to stand up and pee. Are you at that age? Are you at that maturity level yet, Randy, in a deer stand that you actually feel weird about peeing off of a 20-foot tree stand, that you walk down the tree stand, get out, and pee next to the tree, but not from the deer stand?
Well, because now the scent is everything when you're hunting, and so, Brandon, I like I'm a transparent guy.
So wait, you pee on yourself?
We take a little Ziploc bag with some activated charcoal on it, and it's our little outdoor commode. And that way the deer are, this is a science. This is a science. And so I use my urology skills along with that, and science, wins at the end of the day. We do not want to give away our position.
Now, this was one of the most hotly contested debates on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, in that how is it really a science? Because deer literally will run into your car when it's parked. They are so stupid. Is it really a science? Is it really that hard to kill one of the most stupidest animals in the entire world? And people had...
Yeah. Well, I like to hunt a lot. I'm just not a very good killer, but I like to hunt. And for people that do it and do it all the time and know the biology of the deer better than I do and spend a lot of time in the woods, they actually get very adept at it. And, that's why I love bow hunting, because it's really a good sport. It's a fair game. And, you got to be within 30 yards of the deer to do it. So you have to do a lot of stalking, and we spend a lot of time at the farm preparing the land and working on our timber and doing a lot of land management. You'd think I was a tree hugger. You'd think this conservative was a tree hugger.
Let me ask you something.
Pillaging the land.
Yeah. If I'm on a line here, so you got a little charcoal bag you take up. Do women do the same thing when they're hunting up in the stand? I'm being serious. I'm just curious now.
I don't know what women do. I don't know. I'll have to transition to let you know, I guess.
Marsh, you ever been hunting? All right. I've been hunting once, and it was when I lived in Idaho, and it was just an excuse to be traipsing around in the mountains with a gun, drinking whiskey, and I had fun. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's something I would like to go out and do. Maybe not shoot stuff, but I just like being in the outdoors. Randy Tobler, 4:00 this afternoon. If we can yank him out of the tree stand, do you know what's coming up on the show today?
Yeah, we're going to be talking with Aaron Hedlund from the Show Me Institute, get a wrap-up on what he thinks may happen policy-wise as a result of the election. I think they've got some new policy things. I know you heard some of that on Monday. And I really want to garner more thoughts from the listeners, because I think a lot of us have been a little bit numb and dazed by what happened and, trying to process it all. So we hope to hear a lot from listeners.
By the way, deer season starts, rifle season starts Saturday. Did I say Friday? It starts Saturday.
Yeah. And, of course, Ashley Emmel's going to join us. Hey, but can I just say a word about the deer season? I would really hope that all the hunters, when they're up in their stand, are wearing a harness and, maybe taking it easy on the alcohol, because filters go and harnesses aren't put on, and then people fall out of stands and injuries occur. So let's have a safe hunting season in Missouri.
You know how many people right now heard you say that, go, oh, I was going to go get drunk up in the tree stand this morning, but Randy Tobler says I shouldn't do that. You know how many people are now not going to do that?
Probably
nobody.
All of them. They're not going to listen to me.
Randy Tobler, we'll catch you today, 4:00 here on the radio station.
Thanks, man.
All right, we appreciate you. Coming up, Morning Bell, business news, little twist. Only Stephanie Bell can give you. What do you got?
Well, Randy said he's talking to Dr. Hedlund, and when we heard him speak on
Hi, it's 8:27. Time for the Morning Bell business news with a little twist that only Stephanie Bell can give you.
Well, we talked Monday with Dr. Headland from the Show Me Institute and heard about how terrible the economy was, and I had high hopes that maybe we could start to turn some things around, which I'm still a little bit hopeful in that if we take control of the House, at least maybe we could slow the damage. But my hopes were pretty much dashed when I didn't see the red wave on Tuesday, and the stock markets are reflecting that. The S&P dropped 2.1 yesterday, Dow's down 2, NASDAQ down 2.5, and it's also being affected by. You never bought into crypto. Do you have any crypto?
I don't.
And it's hard. It's still hard for me to understand, even though I feel like I'm usually on top of new technology. And I really, I researched Bitcoin when it first came out, but now there's so many different ones. And Binance, I guess, was going to buy this company called FTX, which was one of its rivals. That all fell through, and so Bitcoin is down like 9.5 for Coinbase, and some other people are Ethereum. I'm going to get this wrong. Ethereum is down 17%. And so the crypto market is failing, which I'm thinking, wasn't it already failing? Weren't the people who put all their money in crypto early already super down? But this is causing the markets to go wild even more. And so it's not good news.
Two things. If you don't understand crypto, then I feel better about it then. Because I'm like, okay, because I don't understand it and I don't have an interest in it. Because if I did have an interest in it, I would learn enough about it to understand it. I don't have any interest of it. The other thing I think I think it's like a tobacco vaping shop, maybe. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's on the business loop in Colombia. And it's like vaping products, plus you can buy Dogecoins and all.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about Dogecoin. Wasn't that an Elon Musk thing?
I think so. I'm like, you mean I can go and buy a pack of smokes and digital currency at the same place?
Can you get your vax there, though, too? Do they give out free vaccines? That's what's really, it just seems like fake money, and I know it's not.
Yeah.
And I've tried to learn about it, but, it's not doing well. At this point, I think it's like the people who just bury all of their cash in jars in their house. Not that I have any cash in my house. Don't come looking for it. But I think they might have been onto something.
I heard you do have cash buried around your house when you said, hey, by the way, and I don't have.
I don't.
Coming up 5 minutes from now, here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, we are celebrating an incredibly special birthday. Today, we're doing it for you 5 minutes from now.
may operate differently and in different places than the Marines who wear the Eagle, Globe, and Anchor today. But they will join a long and proud heritage of Marine fighters who have never turned from a threat, never turned from an enemy. We will always remain most ready when our nation is least ready, because we must protect our shores and we must protect our citizens. It's still going to be the Marines who defend this nation.
Semper Fidelis, and happy birthday, Marines.
Man, 247 years, 247th birthday today for the Marines. God bless you, man. That is some powerful, powerful stuff. And we wanted to make sure that we acknowledged and thanked. And we tried to do, and you know, this is kind of interesting because it's easy. Yeah, we appreciate our military. We appreciate first responders, from firefighters to police officers. But I want to say this, not to brag, but to say, we take action when we talk about honoring military, and we do it several ways. One of the ways that we do it is, for example, our Central Missouri Honor Flight Radiothon that we do every year. So we try to actually show, and as we get ready for Veterans Day tomorrow on a Feel Good Friday, we celebrate 247th birthday here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. There's Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
Mr. Brian Houseworth is here.
That is a great tribute you played. Semper Fi is their theme, and Chuck Basie, I know, and I know a lot of Marines, as do you, and had several in my family. So that was great. I'm glad you did that.
Got a best friend named Stuart, Marines. There's producer Hannah.
Good morning.
Brian Hansen, star of the Gary Nolan Show, weekday mornings, 9 o'clock here on the. And John Marsh is here too. Sorry about that, John. I'm here. Aye, sir. Brian Hansen, star of the Gary Nolan Show, weekday mornings, 9 o'clock.
Hoorah.
In the Marines. Amen. I wanted to ask you real quick as we're getting ready for Gary Nolan Show. By the way, he's got another great show today. He hit it out of the park yesterday, and he does most days. But coming up today on the Gary Nolan Show, Think Tank Thursday, Kevin Jackson, one of my personal faves. He is first in line. What will this Donald Trump admirer have to say about the election? I'm excited to hear this because, the Trump-endorsed candidates, how did they do overall in the general? I'm anxious to hear what Kevin Jackson has to say. That's coming up on the Gary Nolan Show today. Brian Hansen,
yes, sir,
in the Marines. So let me ask,
not me.
Not your son. Yeah, your son.
Yeah.
So what was that like when your son came and said, man, I want to join the Marines, Dad?
Oh, it was, a moment that any family that has kids would be, we were just so proud. But at the same time, we were so scared. Every single day we were worried that something could happen, and
So you do the swearing in and all that, and
right.
you're done with your basic training, boot camp, and all that stuff,
Yep.
and the graduation ceremonies, and the
Yep.
music, and the flags, and the nice outfits, and pomp, and circumstance, and everybody's proud, and then you go and do the real stuff.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Well, we went to the graduation, and I started crying, and Denise did too, and of course, Tim walks up to us finally after we were trying to spot him because there are hundreds of Marines that were graduating on that particular day. And they were all dressed alike, and we were looking for him, and we couldn't see him. Then finally, just out of nowhere, he pops up, and we lost it. And he walked up, and he said, Dad, I've never seen you cry before. And it's like, well, I've never seen you graduate as a Marine before. So, yeah, it was a special moment.
How about that? And then when he's gone, he's in the heat of battle. I can't imagine as a parent, because you're proud but fearful.
Yeah, and there was a moment there as soon as he went to boot camp. I mean, it was no more than 3 months that some explosion occurred out at Camp Pendleton in California, and it killed 3 Marines. And you can imagine what our thoughts were on that particular day. And you can't call them. Once they go to boot camp, your hands are tied. You can't reach them.
Yeah.
And so we had to live with that fear, for a couple of weeks. We just had to assume that no news is good news and just get on with our life. But it's really hard. If you have a kid that goes into the military, you just kind of have to set that aside and hope for the best.
Well, I think that's cool. I think it says something about you and your lovely wife as parents, that you had a child in his teenage years, the guidance he must have gotten from his parents, you and your wife, to say, yeah, I want to serve our country. I think it says a lot about you as a parent, man.
Thanks.
Congratulations. Brian Hansen, star of the Gary Nolan Show, is coming up here in about 20 minutes. Kind of an interesting is the wrong word, but this thing that's been happening in Colombia.
We're asking your help to identify and locate a suspected prowler. We believe his activity may be escalating, and we want to keep the community safe. All the victims in this case appear to be females between 20 and 30 years of age, both working professionals and students.
That's Jeremiah Hunter, Assistant Police Chief, Columbia Police Department. Video they've posted onto social media, and I don't want to be, people are scared here, and I don't like preying on anybody's fears, but like a prowler, that's like something I would hear 1978, 1979.
Brandon, you're not hyping it up. This is something that people should be very concerned about.
And it's all happening in one area.
Is a prowler the same as a peeping Tom?
It's another 1979 phrase.
Well, and here's the thing. They're using the word prowler, the CPD. I mean, there's other descriptions. He has not, and Marina Diaz did a fabulous job last night on 17. And don't take this as being critical of a report. She used the word attack. I wouldn't call them attacks, although he chased one, because he hasn't physically touched them. But this man is a danger, very, very strong danger. And she did a great job last night. But we have posted a video of him on our website. If people go to 939theeagle.com, take a look at that picture. And this is a composite sketch. CPD and Jeremiah Hunter worked, and Chief as well. They worked with a professional sketch artist and at least one victim, and they drew this sketch. He's got a hat. Could be, they describe him as maybe balding. That's why he's wearing the hat. But if they click on the story, that's what I really want people to do. There's actually a video I linked to on 939theeagle.com, and you can see the suspect. And here's what's troubling, Brandon and Stephanie. In that video, and that video, by the way, was taken at Aria Apartments, it's hard to see him, but he knows exactly where that camera is. He knows exactly where that camera is, and he knows exactly where these females live and that they live alone. Now, you can draw your own conclusion on that, but he has worked in apartment complexes on Old 63. They're not saying which one, near Grindstone.
Are they saying he used to work at one of these?
No.
Oh.
He's those areas he's targeting. No, he didn't. He didn't work there, not that we know of. But no, he's targeting those areas. But also the one on Buttonwood, and certainly Aria Apartments as well. But the biggest thing, the number one thing that people need to do is lock their doors and make sure you turn on your exterior lights. He's specifically targeting apartments that appear to be dark. And one of the young people that Marina interviewed last night said on camera, Brandon, she said, "My friends and I are trying to make sure it looks like no one's home. We're turning all our lights off." That is not something you want to do. You want to keep the lights on, especially outside, but make sure the doors are locked. But this is very scary. And if someone thinks they know who that is, please call the 875-TIPS number.
It's creepy. And when it comes to fear, when people start preying on people's fears, or they're utilizing fear to get something they want, that bothers me, especially when it's younger kids, mostly younger women.
20 to 30.
20 to 30 years old. I have an affinity for younger women, and not like that. I meant.
Whoa!
I got it. I understand what I knew what you were saying.
Thank you, Brian.
Yes,
I thought you said you used to like older women.
I like them all, frankly. I don't.
They just
care.
don't like him very much.
Yeah, it's just not reciprocated. Somebody told me years ago, I'm like, I have all these. This is what I want, and they said, well, broaden your horizons when it comes to dating. And I always heard it as lower my expectations. Is what I heard when it comes. So when I said I have an affinity for young, I mean like.
Right.
Extra concerned.
Thank you.
You're concerned.
Thank you,
you're worried. I totally get it. You're concerned. You're worried. And no, you're not hyping it up, and we're not hyping it up either. I think it's a big deal. As I said on air the other night during our live election night coverage, I said any other night this would be the lead story on television. I am, unfortunately, on election night, He, according to Marina's report, who did a fabulous job, this guy tried to get into 5 to 6 apartments on Grindstone, all single women. He knows where they live, and I'm not going to use a term, but a term comes to my mind that starts with an S. So, somebody would have to know where they live. That is really a concern, and I know CPD's doing a lot of work. They're doing a lot of work. I don't know everything they're doing, and they're being very vague with me, other than there's nothing new to report. But just the most important thing is if they think they know who it is, call.
Am I the only one right now that's wondering? You said the S word. I'm not quite sure. Steph, do you know which S word
No.
it is? Marsh, do you know? Hannah?
I do, yeah.
It's not a curse word. It's something that someone would know where these people live. It's a concern.
So his motivation, you're saying, is sex, maybe?
I don't know about that. I don't know if I really
stalker.
How can we not catch this guy? I mean, it seems like he's all over the place, and it seems like people have seen him. And like these apartments, there are a lot of people. I guess.
Yeah, and Stephanie, it's a great question. Stalker is that's what comes to my mind when someone targets, and it's that. I'm not hyping that up, folks. If you look at what he's doing, that is exactly. He knows. He chased one young lady to her door. She barely got inside and locked the door. She's going to be scared to death, I'm sure, to even come outside. Now he knows where she lives. But to Stephanie's point, and that's why I think it's so important, folks, on our website, click on the video. He walks specifically. He knows where that video camera is. He walks specifically as far as he can, and then it makes an immediate right turn. And Stephanie, notice, too, where he's doing it. In the very back of the complex, it's pitch black. But what I can't figure out is how is he getting out of there? Has he got a vehicle? Is he walking away, or is he parking somewhere else? We don't know, and police are being very tight-lipped. They've got 3 different divisions of CPD working on this.
Yeah.
3.
Go to our websites, 939theeagle.com, KWOS.com, excuse me, and you can see like a sketch artist drawing of the suspect. It's targeting an area in Columbia. Coming up a few minutes from now, we're going to be doing some leftovers, what we didn't get to in the show. You got stuff in your fridge.
Here's a big old serving of leftovers. Enjoy.
All right, leftovers. Kind of my favorite part of the show because it's almost 9 o'clock. That's
What?
No, I'm kidding.
You just said we were your favorite podcast.
As a matter of fact, we are. Favorite podcast. Go to our websites, 939theeagle.com, KWOS.com, or you can pull us out and listen on your podcast, wherever you get your podcasts from. I do like going back and listening to the Wake Up Mid-Missouri podcast. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good listen. I know, completely, and I have no dog in this fight. Welcome into the show. We're getting ready to wrap things up before we get into the Gary Nolan Show. Leftovers, number one here on my list of leftovers. Chuck, welcome into the show. What can we do for you, bud?
Well, I was just sitting here listening to everything about this prowler / stalker, and is it just me, or am I the only one baffled as to how one person can know that many single women that live by themselves in so many different apartment complexes, and he's not like somebody who is easily like identified, like, because don't you have to like the whole definition of stalking? Don't you got to hang out around to make sure that these people are single and live alone? I mean, somebody's had to have seen this dude.
He's doing, from what I know, my opinion is, he's got to be doing a lot of back work, a lot of back end work. Like I spent a lot of time researching political candidates. This guy is researching where young women live, what their hours are, what they are doing. That's how he's spending his time. I heard some of that same stuff. I have some of the same questions. Hopefully it doesn't turn into anything worse than what it has been. Chuck, thank you for the phone call. We appreciate you being a part of Wake Up Mid-Missouri. What do you got in your fridge?
Well, a win yesterday here in the state for criminal justice reform advocates. There is a guy, Bobby Bostic, who was sentenced to 241 years for armed robbery with a group of folks when he was a juvenile. So he was about 16 when he got sentenced, and at the time there was really no, leniency for just being a kid, and got this really long sentence. And when the law changed last year with the legislature, apparently he went out on parole, but yesterday he was fully released. He has an interesting story. He's basically said he's been completely reformed. He regrets what he did when he was a juvenile. And a lot of folks, you see some things on for criminal justice reform, whether it be bail reform or other things. But one of their big things is, hey, you're never stupider than when you're like 18, and people make mistakes when they're youth, and it shouldn't sacrifice their whole life, depending on, I think, the crime, obviously. And that's one area where we could be a little bit more lenient, and I tend to agree with that. And so there was a big press conference yesterday when Bobby Bostic was released.
So in 1995, 16-year-old Bobby, he's out with some friends. He's 16 years old, running the streets. I don't know if you know where Botanical Gardens are in St. Louis, kind of in that area. He and an accomplice robbed a group of people who were delivering Christmas presents to folks that didn't have the means to buy their own Christmas presents. Matter of fact, the judge then said, you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison. That was Judge Evelyn Baker. The judge yesterday, one of the first people, when Bobby gets out of prison, one of the first people to give him a hug yesterday, Judge Evelyn Baker.
I learned about brain development and realized what an injustice I had done to a 16-year-old child.
So that's the judge saying, I sentenced him for crimes he did when he was 16 years old, and now I've done, in his brain, sure, it's 16 years old, the whole juvenile thing, but now not only does she, say, hey, I don't think I handled that right, I know more now than what I did then. Now she's advocating. She advocated for him to get out of prison. As a matter of fact, she's been published in the Washington Post for her work on this. 20 seconds, John, anything in your leftover refrigerator? Mm-hmm. Coming up, my dad's favorite show. It is the Gary Nolan Show today here on 93.9 The Eagle and 104.5 News Radio 950 KWOS. Today, first and foremost, on the Think Tank Thursday with Gary